Okay, so a majority of you voted and y'all wanted to see how to make a calorie deficit meal plan. Like, how are we gonna go about this? And I've been thinking about this over the past week and like how to present this idea. And I figured, okay, what a better way to present this idea than to take a Sunday and kind of film my process and just kind of talk out loud to you and explain to you what I think about when I'm trying to create a meal plan or a meal plan for a calorie deficit. Kind of works out ideal right now because both me and my significant other and I are actually doing a little bit of a calorie deficit right now, a minor one. So I want to talk through that. I want to also talk through some other points. So we're going to take a little bit of a different approach with this production, if you will, this filming. It's going to be more or less a longer form video, a little bit more of a stream of consciousness thoughts. I have some planned things, but yeah, that's the direction that we're going to take this video in trying to figure out how to create a calorie deficit meal plan, more or less hopefully to give you the tools and the thought process behind what I do, and hopefully y'all can make your meal plan on the end. So while we're getting breakfast ready and getting things rolling, figured we can kind of outline what we're going to talk about for today. We're going to talk a little bit about budgeting, like how many calories, how to figure out what your calorie deficit is, and if you're actually in one, how to find that number of calories. That's why I call it kind of the budgeting section, because I mean, we need to know what our boundaries are. We need to know how much we need in order to lose weight. I mean, not just lose weight or lose body fat, but also to, right, make sure that we're satiated enough to get through the rest of the days, that we're not miserable, right? That it's so taxing on us to eat this few of calories to sustain for a longer period of time. So yeah, that's what we're going to do for the first segment. Then the second, we will talk about what I like to call is the strategy. The strategy is, I chose a paring knife to try and cut my vegetables with. The strategy, I call it the strategy because it's, right, how can you, might be a little bit of a different way to think about it. How can you use meal timing and frequency and macronutrient distributions and the amount of each macronutrient to our advantage to help us maintain or sustain a calorie deficit? So that's going to be step 2, is what I like to call the strategy, which will be meal frequency and your macros. Then I'll say number 4. I think the 4th thing that I really wanted to go through is going and actually meal planning. I think we'll actually hop on my computer and look at Cronometer and go through a meal plan real quick and start building that out. I have a couple strategies that we'll talk about for that one too. Like using the protein, fat, and carb method for picking what you're going to use, then going back through and making sure, okay, let's play the nutrition by addition game and make sure we're adding on our vegetables, making sure we're getting some nuts and seeds, going back through your meal plan and making sure we're getting some beans, make sure we're getting our low-fat dairy, and kind of seeing what our meal plan looks like, not only from an energy standpoint, like a calorie and macronutrient standpoint, but calorie and macronutrient standpoint, but also a micronutrient, vitamin and mineral, fiber, all the other nutrients that you need. Think about it. If you're okay, you could, this is the way I like to put it, is sure, get all your protein from here, from this one source, right? Or even taking egg whites, for example, right? Get all your protein from there. Cool. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you only eat egg whites, right? Then let's talk about our fats. The only fats that you eat are olive oil, right? Cool. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's all we eat. And then and these are even healthy, for our carbs, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we only eat that. Guess what? We're getting the nutrition profile of only whole grain bread. We're getting the nutrition profile of only egg whites. We're getting the nutrition profile of only olive oil, right? That's not a huge profile. When in reality, right, we could get the profile from a little bit of our bell pepper. We can get the profile from some whole eggs. We can get the profile from some, Greek yogurt. I need to not go on a tangent because we'll never finish this video or get along with our day. But yeah, so the goal here is to make sure we're going back through, we're adding in foods that we need for, right, this is where that kind of diet quality comes into play. So, right, you have a good quality diet, meaning you have a diet that's rich in vitamins, minerals, fiber, antioxidants, right, the works. You have all those pieces. So, yeah, that's going to be step number 4, is going back through and doing nutrition addition. So we have step 3, that's meal planning. Step 4, that's nutrition by addition, kind of playing that game. And then step 5 is actually, we'll do that probably on my computer, and we'll probably go to the grocery store as well. So, yeah, we'll do meal planning, grocery shopping, and then I'll talk to you guys a little bit about, like, also on Sundays, I'll make sure that, like, we're going through, you know, the King Soopers app and saying, okay, what's on sale this week, and what would be the best cost or best, cheapest protein sources that would be a good source, or cheapest vegetables, or whatever it might be. Like, looking for the best deal as well. Like, we're not trying to spend $1 million going to, you know, what's that grocery store that's a lot of money? It's like really expensive. It has like Erdogan or something like that. Erdogan. Anyhow, yeah. So, let's go ahead and, because that's why I wanted to kind of open up right now, is with this, was to talk about, like, budgeting and that calorie deficit, and how we, like, going into that calorie deficit, like, how do we figure that out? What's going on here? And even before we, like, figure out what that number is and use that, right, math or equation that we can use for it, like, your body needs a specific amount of calories when we think about it, right? I think I got something in my eye. I think we're good. Your body needs a specific amount of calories. So when we think about it, it's almost like you pay tax. I had a little analogy here with some Monopoly money. I'm gonna go grab that real quick. Okay. Okay, so right, your body needs a specific amount of calories. I have this Monopoly money. I wanted to use an example. I think so. So it needs, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, let's say this is $1,800, 1,800 calories, right? You gotta think about it. This 1,800 calories, let's say theoretically, this is what your body needs, just for the example. Right, your body needs it for specific purposes. Awesome, right? We need to make sure that we have, you know, a couple $100 going to make sure that we have running our eyes. We have a, you know, a couple $100 that are going up and making sure that we're running our brain. And then we have a couple $100 that are keeping, you know, our heart pumping. Another couple $100 that are keeping our bones rolling, right? Another couple $100 that are supporting our muscle mass, and we're actually growing that, so they get a couple more $100 as they keep growing and keep developing new tissue. So like, you can see my example here, like these calories that we need from this food and nutrition mean something, right? We need to make sure that we're getting it so that we can support all of these functions that we are going on within our bodies. Now, when we think about a calorie deficit, right? Now, right, when we set it up in those terms, it's not like, cool, how can we cram down calories as fast as we can so we can lose as much weight as we can, right? Maybe we have a little bit of a different context to think about this now, which is, okay, cool, my body needs these calories. If I deprive it of these calories and I go on a essentially controlled starvation diet, we're restricting calorie intake, I'm not giving my body this so they can live on this own fat. So it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be so aggressive with this. Maybe I should be pretty moderate with this. Maybe I should give my body what it needs, and really almost double down on the idea of making sure that you're getting all the nutrients because you are eating in such a small, constricted or restricted amount of calories. It's kind of how I want to set this idea or this thought process of how do we create a calorie deficit and how do I know if I'm in it? So setting that I don't even know what the word is, like that context maybe. So I know that roughly, it's funny that you kind of figure some things out in your kitchen, but if I do this glass with 2 eggs, it's almost guaranteed to be in here like that. And I put my egg whites in it. I don't know, you might be able to see it back here a little bit better. That it's almost exactly 200 grams of egg whites if I fill it almost to the brim of the top. Well, it's like weird little kitchen things that you figure out over time. So like I was saying, you really don't, when you want to do this calorie deficit, you want to kind of figure out, okay, what is going to be something that is going to be reasonable? Because I know my body needs this, and at the end of the day, if you think you're going to outfool your body, and especially in the environment that we live in with fast food right around the corner, grocery stores always stocked up with our favorite foods, like there's never really an opportunity for us to starve. In theory, right? Of course, there's food deserts, and it's hard to get access to food for some people, and I am well aware of that. You're not going to trick your body. You're not, right? You can't cram your calories down so low and think that you're going to try and like avoid the food, avoid the office, whatever, donuts or cupcakes they bring in for someone's birthday. It's just never going to happen. So it's like, how do you, right? Instead of fighting with that, like, how do you work with your body, and how do you find a good situation where you can like, okay, yes, I can lose weight at this rate, but I'm also not starving. I'm also not dead inside. I'm also not like, there's no energy, there's no sex drive. Like, no, like I can lose weight, and you know, I can eat enough to kind of sustain me in all these other areas of my life. You'll let that get a little hot. So like I said, it is Sunday, and I don't really have very many foods at home. I think honestly, at the end of the day, for this idea of a calorie deficit and what is, how do you know if you're in it? I tell a lot of people, if you just ate at home, cooked all your meals, like that was the one kind of food rule you had, was you just didn't eat out, which I get it, like that's hard. People's birthdays and like celebrations, that's how we break bread with people, that's how we build relationships, but the tax on eating out, the tax on eating out is so expensive, so high in sodium, so high in calories. Like we do it a couple times and it stacks up so quickly that it's not even funny. But yeah, it's kind of my one thought there. Don't get me wrong, last night I went out to Lazy Dog. It's I think it's a local restaurant. These are tomatoes, good handful of each. To celebrate a promotion my brother got. So like I get like the advice is, it's hard to give, especially like with people's nutrition, people's diet. There's so many circumstances and you just don't know. You don't know what people's circumstances are. I don't know about y'all, but I really dislike overcooked eggs. They have to be, I don't like undercooked eggs either, but they have to be like perfectly cooked. So yeah, that's kind of an idea or thought about setting up your calorie deficit and how much to do that. I think there's a few different ways you can do that. Number one is you can track your calories and track your weight for like, call it 2 weeks, call it 14 days. And be like, okay, cool, if I eat 2,300 calories on average over the course of that 14 days or 2,500 calories, and you lose weight in the first like few days, well, bump your calories up a few hundred calories and see if you still lose weight. And then you bump them up again, see if you still lose weight. And if you stop losing weight and you are at a certain amount of calories for a few days, and you're not really gaining weight either, like that's gonna be probably your maintenance calorie, and honestly is gonna be the ideal way of making sure that you are actually, that's what your actual maintenance calories are. Like, right, when you think about these calculators, you think about predictive equations, you think, like, it's exactly what they are. These are predictive, they're a best guess at best. They don't take into account genetic variations, which, I mean, they're pretty good, right? Don't get me wrong, I'm not putting them down by any means, but we're talking ideal situation here. But when you think about these calculators, right, they're all predictive or hypothetical in nature. Like theoretically, this is how many calories you should be burning based on, you know, however many other female of your age, your height, all those other stats, right? So, right, a more comprehensive view of what your actual energy needs are from day to day would be to track and see what your actual needs are, right? What your job is, what your life circumstances are, how much stress you're dealing with, how much you're working out, how much you're moving your body, how much you're not moving your body, how much you're sleeping, like, right, all of those pieces, right? That's such a personal, so many variables. Granted, I think you can get within the ballpark with these predictive equations, and I think it's fine if you do decide to go down that route. I'm talking what's optimal here. So yeah, that being said, number one would be to track your calories and track your weight consistently for like 2 weeks, see what's going on, manipulate the calories up and down to make sure that you're kind of figuring out what that looks like for you, being pretty diligent about your tracking, and then that'll give you the best insight into how many calories per day on average you use. And then it's not a guessing game from there on out. You have a pretty good idea, which can give you a great foundation. Okay, so the next way that I'll suggest here is using online calculators like, we're gonna use one, the body weight planner. And to be honest, I think I'll just film it and I'll put it in here and I'll give an example. Okay, cool. So we are here now. We're going to talk about the actual, how we're going to figure out the calorie deficit that we need in order to make this meal plan happen. Now, that being said, this is one of my favorite sites to use for figuring out a calorie deficit. It takes a few things into account, which we're going to get through. So first and foremost, like most calculators, you kind of type in your weight. I think I was using an example person here that was 165 pounds, female, 34 years old. I think we went with 5'5". And this physical activity level, this is actually a comment that I got not too long ago about the physical activity level. It can be confusing. You can estimate your activity level. So for example, let me move my head out of the way. We have here where it is select your work activity. So this would be like, what are you doing at work? Are you a waitress or a waiter? Are you a construction worker? Are you a desk jockey? Are you, right? Well, what do you do? And then you kind of can depend on what that is. Okay, if I'm a construction worker, it's probably heavy, right? Industrial work, construction work, farming, moderate, like kitchen staff, delivery, mail, foot, bicycle, light, industrial work, sales, office, comprises light activity, very light, sitting at a computer most days or sitting at a desk most days. So you can kind of choose which one that is. The default is just on what is most people, so you can leave it on the default and know that you're probably, you know, fine. So leave it on the default. Then you can say, hey, how much weight do I want to lose? And I want to say, let's say we want to lose 20 pounds. So we want to get down to 165. We can do it 180 days, so about 6 months. This is where I think this program comes in and it's really cool. So right, normally when people are getting ready to like start following a meal plan, start doing something, they're also ready to kind of kick up their exercise a little bit. So when you start thinking about that, you can say, hey, I'm gonna increase my physical activity by 100%. I'm doing nothing right now. I'm gonna do a day or 2 days, whatever that might be. So what I've noticed for this calculation, somewhere in the range of like 25 to 50% increases is typically what I've noticed as what people will do. So it's like, okay, maybe I'm not strength training right now. Maybe I'm not doing some of these things. So I start including it a couple days a week. And so now I've gone from doing 1 to 2 days to doing 2 to 4 days. So that's what I've kind of noticed as a pattern. So if you want a general number, I think it's go with like 25 or 50. Let's see what 50% does. And so now it's going to kick out my calories and say that. So this is pretty high. This is a high calorie range for my calorie deficit based on where I'm at sitting. That's 2,100 calories. I probably would say, probably not going to kick that up, probably go with 25%. Yeah, that seems a little bit more reasonable. About 1,900 calories, 145 pounds. For a 5'5" female that's 34 years old, that's, you know, relatively active and plans on increasing it a little bit more. So you can kind of see how this lays out here over the course of 6 months, right? If we tried to increase this, let's say we wanted to do this in 3 months, right? Significantly brings those calories down by quite a bit. So depending on how many days you want to run it for and how much you want to actually increase your physical activity, all those pieces are going to play into how many calories you get to eat. So let's say we did want to do this in about 180 days, 1,950 calories. This is what we're going to use for our calorie budget from here on moving forward, about 1,900 calories. We'll round down to keep it nice and even. Another cool thing about this is it'll give you the chart and the data and theoretically some of the dates and weigh-ins that you should be hitting if you are theoretically actually eating that amount of calories. So cool program, check it out. I'll leave the link in the description below. But yeah, that's how we'll base our budget off of, is that 1,900 calories. But yeah, the body weight planner is the second way. And you'll see in this in the little clip I'll put in there, like going through the example of what it would look like. Okay, how many calories for maintenance? How many calories for your calorie deficit? How much weight do we want to lose based on that? How much we're going to actually work out or increase our exercise during this period of time? It's a really good it's my favorite calculator. In addition to those, but you can use like MyFitnessPal. You can plug in your height, your weight, all those pieces, and you're going to find all that. Cronometer, again, you're going to find all that information in those applications as well. I think your Apple Health will actually tell you how many calories you burn per day on average, especially like if you are pretty diligent about tracking your steps, tracking your workout, and tracking your watch. You might get a decent idea of what that looks like. Then like you can compile all these different pieces and say, okay, cool, like it seems like my range is 1,900 to 2,300 as far as my maintenance calories are concerned. Right, so we have our three kind of ways. Tracking your calories, tracking your weight, using my body weight planner or an online calculator, or using one of the apps and using the data from your phone and tracking an Apple Health are kind of the ways I'll suggest to you. Then so I think that's what I'll do for this one. I think that's what I'll say for the budgeting piece of this. As I'm kind of thinking about this and looking at the next piece of this and thinking about, okay, the strategy aspect is going to be the second piece to this. So thinking about that and having a strategy set up is the next piece. Okay, so we're on to part 2 of this, how to create a calorie deficit meal plan / Sunday vlog with your virtual dietitian Noah Casella, and making a second round of eggs. Sorry, there's gonna be a lot of eggs in this video, a lot of cooking, but we'll see some cool stuff too. So this second component or second section of this video, the strategy, right? This is the idea of how, right, we're gonna set ourselves up for success when we are in this calorie deficit, at least to try and use some tactics that'll set us up for success. And this will include setting up your macronutrients and setting up your meal timing or meal frequency, how many times you're going to eat throughout the day. And I created that whiteboard. I actually created that a couple days ago in trying to shoot this video in a couple different ways. And this was oh man, I'm out of cooking oil. So, right, when we looked at this budgeting, I went with that person that was, I think it was about 1,900 calories, a little under 1,900 calories that this person needed for a pretty gradual, I think it was 6-month weight loss of about 20 pounds, going from about 165 to 145 was, I think, the general idea here. And so that's what I kind of set up here. In that, kind of this first section was the macro section, and really the important piece is just making sure that we're getting enough protein during this period of time. And then the next important piece was this kind of calories, move the egg whites, and macros. Excuse me, meal distribution throughout the day. So for the protein, I mean, as far as research is concerned, like, I just don't see the case for most people, even people that are lifting, to eat more than 1.6, maybe in some cases when we're lifting in a calorie deficit, after a prolonged period of time, like almost like competitive bodybuilder status, yes, there might be a need for a higher protein intake. But for most, if we're just losing weight and we're just doing some strength training, it seems like 1.2 to 1.6 seems like a pretty reasonable intake. Of course, I mean, if you like a little bit more protein, no harm, no foul, eat more protein. If you don't, then you can have the lower end of it too. So I think it just gives you a good range that you can go from. So for this person, it was somewhere around, what, like 90 to, 120. Seeing that, you know, I don't know, maybe I've been bitten by the bodybuilding bug for so many years. I tend to go on the higher end of protein just because it's a little bit, it fills me up, I like eating it, but also it is a little bit more expensive to eat higher protein. Like, it's not something, it's also a pain in the ass to cook and prepare, so it's like, yeah, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Yeah, so went with that 120 grams for this one. Fats, really honestly, it should be based on calories. There's very little research, but somewhere in the range of a half a gram to 1 gram per kilogram. So for this person, it was somewhere between 38 and 75 kilograms. Went with the lower fat one. Preference on my end. Honestly, you can go with the higher one if you want. You just adjust the carbs down here. So carbs would be just the remaining, fats plus protein minus total daily. So 480 calories coming from protein, 342 calories coming from dietary fats. That gives us 822 calories, 1900 calories, right? That's what we started with. Minus 822 gives us about 1078. There's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, 9 calories per gram of fat, and 4 calories per gram of protein. That gives us about 270 grams of carbohydrate. All right, so then we have our macros up here. We can say, whoops, let's not burn these eggs. So, right, you can see the total macros up top. That's going to be equal to that 1,900 calories. Giving us that relatively higher protein diet, moderate to lower fat diet, and then moderate to, low carbohydrate. Moderate to high carbohydrate. So all that being said, then you kind of have the next piece of step 2 in the strategy, which is meal timing. Right now, it looks like the research really points at having several meals throughout the day, at least 4 meals throughout the day. And there's kind of this thought process about, okay, right, if you can digest and absorb food, specifically amino acids, and you can eat food, digest it, absorb it, and be ready to eat food again. If you can do that more often and bring yourself more nutrients, utilize more nutrients throughout the day, and capitalize on this kind of digestion absorption flow, then you theoretically can build more muscle, retain more tissue, lose more body fat. That's kind of the thought process. Also kind of navigate, right? Because that's also the digestion and absorption piece is also going to be where your hunger cues are coming from. So having some connection to this idea of, okay, digestion, absorption, okay, hunger cues are going up, I'm getting hungrier, let's go ahead and eat again. And you're kind of working with your body instead of against your body. Now, not to say that this is the only way to do it. There are plenty of people that can do one meal a day or time restricted eating, and that is an actual strategy for them to be able to manage calories, is to shorten that eating window. So like, I'm not saying that those aren't wrong ways to do it. I don't say that there's a wrong way to do it. I'd say that there might be an optimal way of doing this. And even at that statement, right? Optimal might be different for person to person. In my specific case, I think that this would be optimal. Now, take with what you want with that. So when I'm thinking about that, like, you then divide, right, all of these numbers here. So we have 120, 38, 270. This is kind of just divided evenly throughout. They don't really have to be divided evenly throughout, but you'll kind of see how I set these up throughout the day. But you'll see, like, even the meal that I'm cooking right now, where we have, lean proteins. So we're having, this is probably closer to 40 grams of protein, then probably 10 grams of fat. We got 2 eggs in here, so there's definitely 11 odd grams of fat. And then we're having 2 pieces of toast with it, which are 18 grams each. So this is only, what, 36? 36 grams of carbohydrate. So this is a little short on carbohydrate. Probably could have an extra gram of toast, piece of toast with this breakfast. So that's just like kind of an example of what meal 1 would look like based on what we just cooked. And really what the goal here, I think, is to highlight would be is you have these pieces down here. This now gives you structure. Like, you can go find a recipe that has 475 calories, or a recipe that has 30 grams of protein, right? You can kind of use those as your gauge. That's what I probably would use to go find things, or build out your meal plan, being like, okay, I need a protein source, I need a fat source, I need a carb source. So you can kind of take 2 approaches. Either find something that fits this bill, or go find something that fits find ingredients that fit these individual builds and build a meal plan, or build a meal off of it. And we'll get into a little bit more detail about that, because I'll level you up from just looking at the calories and macros to then incorporating the food groups into that situation as well. So for proteins, making sure we're getting lean proteins, salmons, dairy, low-fat dairy, all those pieces that we need in here to not only get the protein, but calcium, the healthy fats, all those pieces. Same thing with fats, same thing with carbs. Okay, so to do the meal planning actual section of this, there are a few things. First and foremost, I like to use a tracking software like Cronometer, and I've actually in my significant other's profile right now. So, or client example, we'll call it. So with that being said, I like to use these because then I have some sort of idea of what I'm actually getting from a calorie, macronutrient, and nutrients profile. And then I can kind of adjust and make tweaks as I go. And I use kind of 2 frameworks. The first framework is like a protein, fat, and carb framework, where it's like, cool, I just need to get this much protein, here's my source, here's how I'm going to cook it, so on and so forth. Then fats and carbs are the same. The other methodology that I like to do is like recipes, right? If we go find if we have a recipe that we really like, or that we have something along those lines, that's what we can also use, as long as it follows the parameters that we had earlier. If you remember, it's like 475 calories, give or take, and 10 grams of fat, 30 grams of protein, and something like 60 grams of carbs or something like that per meal. And specifically for this one, and we're going to do it a little differently, just because there is a pre and post workout nutrition, so we're going to show you that piece as well. But with that being said, this week we kind of came to the conclusion for meal planning. We're going to keep things pretty simple, but before I do that, I do want to show you. I don't think it'll let me show you this. Let me see if I can pull up. Okay, cool. So this is the one I was looking for. So I just have a kind of quick recipe catalog of just like a bunch of recipes I find on the internet. And I was just going to show you guys how to so theoretically, like, you're meal planning, you have a couple recipes in mind that you want to use, and you want to throw those in there. And you want to make sure, okay, does this fit my meal plan? How is this going to work? So we got this easy white chicken chili. We'll say copy link. Okay, cool. I want to have that in there. So I'm going to actually go into here. I can go into add food. let me actually put in here. I can go into my foods actually. I can go into the recipe. I can import a recipe. So this is where this actually comes in super handy. And I can let this do its magic. Awesome, now I've got this recipe that came in and got populated here. It looks pretty good. There's 12 servings. Let's see what happens if I do per serving. So 337 calories, 43 grams of protein. So awesome, this looks like a pretty decent recipe where I could actually just add some carbohydrate to get a pretty good meal out of, right? So this is a really easy way to do this, and then you can just come back to your diary. What did we call this? Let's save this, save. And we can come back here and be like, okay, cool, let me just add this, and then boom, add food, and we can add that, easy white chicken chili. I have 2 of them in there. So boom, now you have that in there. So right, meal planning can be just as easy as that, where you're just going out and seeking those. Maybe you're putting some things together, and that's actually what we did here, and I'll actually kind of go through these individually so you can kind of see them. Yeah, so that's what we did here. When looking at the meal plan, we're like, okay, so you can kind of see like protein, fats, and carbs. This is pretty low fat meal, not intentionally by any means. Probably could add some dietary fats in here of some sort. So our first meal is a protein shake, milk, cereal, so some shredded wheats. This is actually a really great source of fiber, great source of a bunch of things. 8 grams of fiber. Phosphorus, potassium, good source of potassium, copper, iron, magnesium. So, right, a pretty good source of a lot of things. So try and get some whole grains in there. Try not to go that far yet. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk in the next section. But so we have our carbs. So essentially we have 40 protein, 70 carb, 3 fat, 421 calories, 33 protein, 35 carb, 19 fat. So you can see how like sometimes they'll get skewed. You'll have higher fat ones or higher carb ones, and you kind of just adjust as you go through the day. It's like, cool, I had a higher fat breakfast, a higher fat lunch, and I don't really have a ton of fats left. I could stay in my fats, but as long as I stay in my calories, I'm good. But so you kind of just mix and match and roll with the punches as you go through. So that's what I want you to take away from that here. So yeah, when I'm meal planning here, this is more or less the lines of looking at protein, fats, and carbs, looking for ingredients that are going to meet those. And when you're thinking about those, you're kind of thinking from a category of foods. So cool, you've got your carbohydrates. I actually had this, which I will show you. So you have where did I put it at? Oh, okay. I don't think I put it on here, but anywho, so like for your protein sources, you would have, you'd want to choose from lean sources. So lean protein, plus, what I'd say here is your sources are you want to vary your sources. So ideally you have some eggs, you have some, just because they're not in there, but you also have some, low fat dairy, which would maybe be like your Greek yogurt or your low fat milk. Then you can have things like whey protein just because it's a lean protein source, but really it has nothing else. I'm always hesitant to always recommend protein just because it's like that's all you're getting is a super processed, super isolated. If you ate a chicken breast, if you ate an egg, any other protein source, you get so many other nutrients at a cheaper price point than a whey protein source. So all that being said, so you get your lean proteins, your eggs, your low-fat dairies, whey proteins. You get your fishes, tilapias. You've got your fattier fish, so like salmon, which we definitely do want to include. Then you have salmon. So that's going to kind of, I'm thinking like, but then you have your I'm thinking lean proteins like chicken, ground turkey, lean cuts of beef. Then you have so that kind of gives you a sense of the categories for your protein, fats, and carbs, or this concept, right? Then you have your fats, which you want to choose from what are in the healthy fat categories, right? And these are normally considered like your avocados, your olive oils, your macadamia nuts, your, trying to think of some other ones. So you can kind of see this healthy fat idea where you kind of look at healthy fats. You have plant oils, plant seed oils, like olive oil. You've got avocados. You've got plant seed oils, avocado, nuts, seeds. You've also got like tree nut butters, so your almond butter, your peanut butters. So we can put tree nut butters. Okay, cool, cool. And so we choose from those to fill out our fats. And uh, yeah, because we're on fats, we'll go ahead and do this. One thing that I like is like a conceptual way of thinking about this is it's like you pick your protein, right? That's kind of the base of your meal. You choose your carb, something that's going to pair well with your protein, and then you find your fat, right? You identify if your fat is in any of your protein sources. So, right, if you have salmon for that meal, you could add avocado, but it's also like adding a ton of fat to that meal. Do you need it? Does it taste good? Does it add to the meal? Great, add it. Are you just doing it for the sake of adding fats? Well, it might be like, cool, I already got salmon on there. I can put avocado with my next meal or something. So you have this pick your protein, find your fats, choose your carb concept, and you just go through and you kind of use this plus the framework we're going to talk in the next section about more as the food groups, right? Choosing foods from lean proteins, whole grains, beans, nuts and seeds, fruits, vegetables, and low-fat dairy, if I didn't cover that one. Right, if we can choose from those like 7, 8 food groups, and I'd put like healthy fats on the end there as well, and we choose a majority of our foods, like 80, 90% of our foods coming from those food groups, we're going to ensure that we're meeting all the, not only the the calories and macros, but the micronutrients. And I'll show you this actually on the, so this is that meal plan that I was talking about. I didn't want to take it this far this quickly, but my goal here is, cool. So we have like a day, right? We didn't like, nothing's filled out. There's 0% on all of this stuff, right? We could add one food, but then it's going to give us only a certain amount of things. We look at this day where we filled out the meal plan. We've got everything flushed out. So we're having a protein shake with some cereal, like a high protein cereal with strawberries on top. Super fast breakfast, working out in the morning, want to get some protein in before we go into the workout. Then we have meal number 2, which is Greek yogurt, some blueberries, some almonds, and some chia seeds. So you can see there's our protein chosen from a low-fat dairy. There's our fruit, which is kind of our carbohydrate, fats, both in there as well. Then we have meal number 3, which is, this is very similar to the meal plan I actually posted for the YouTube video. I just thought about that. Chicken thighs, brown rice, black beans, bell peppers, avocado, all that fun stuff, right? We've got some Gatorade powder for our pre and post workout. We're not doing any post workout nutrition, and you can see salmon, sweet potatoes, and broccoli for dinner. This roughly gives us, right, 1,843 calories. I'm getting to the point here. 136 grams of protein. So it fulfills our macros. 233 grams of carbohydrate and 49 grams of fat. Right? It fulfills the macros as a whole. Cool. So then we have, we go down here, right, and it fills out 90% of all of our targets with some good confidence, with a 95% confidence score, meaning that information is decently reliable. Okay, so we break this nutrition score down a little bit further. We've got vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, immune support, antioxidants, bone health, metabolism support. We'll go into vitamins and minerals, right? You can look here. We've got almost all of our vitamins, 99% of our folate, these are ones that are falling short, 90% of our vitamin E, and 95% of our vitamin D from our nutrition. And this is cool. So we're eating out of our minerals, we're just shy of our iron and our sodium. Currently, as if you're female and watching, the World Health Organization, I think, came out with a suggestion that of iron supplementation, like a couple times a year, a couple months out of the year. I think it was like 3 months out of the year. So I think it might behoove you just to have that on your radar of like, ooh, am I low in iron? Do I need to supplement with iron? Talking to your doctor, getting some blood work done, and making sure that your iron you're meeting your iron requirements, and it's on your radar, right? You're paying attention. You're aware of your iron levels and where you're at with that. And if you're noticing symptoms of like lightheadedness and dizziness, fatigue, right, those are really general, hard to pinpoint, but you're definitely checking in with this piece, okay? So that being said, right, you can see vitamins and minerals almost 100% throughout. That's why we're getting such a high score here. Then you can see fiber, almost 40 grams. We're meeting the fiber requirement. Omega 3s, we're meeting the omega 3s and surpassing it by a few grams, almost 400% as far as the minimum requirement. And then protein, we're meeting the requirements here and getting a ton of lysine, leucine, isoleucine, the branch chains. So the point I'm trying to make here is, right, when we're making the meal plan, the goal is not just to meet this arbitrary calorie number and this arbitrary, almost arbitrary, right? There's much more to this. Like this is the tip of the iceberg, and this is the bottom of the like. This is where you need to make sure you're getting all of your nutrients from. So yeah, this is why I personally use Cronometer because I want to check in with these pieces and making sure that hey, I'm you know, my gums are sore or something. Am I getting enough vitamin C? Or like, can you start to correlate like your feelings and symptoms of maybe malnutrition or missing out on some vitamins or minerals or something, and being able to adjust your diet and move forward? I think that's a really important skill that people lack, and hopefully I can help shed some light on today. Okay, so we've gone through this. This is our meal plan that we're going to use. Now, what I'll say is, I'm going to have to block out our email address now. But what I'll say is, from here, this is where I'll use a little AI to kind of help create my grocery list. So I'll use this thing. Oh, it's going to reload this whole page. I don't know if it's going to keep me going. We might have to do a little skip jump here. Oh, it worked. Okay, so we're still rolling. Okay, so this is Harper AI that I like to use when I'm making these meal plans. So what I'll do here is I will use this to kind of copy what's ever on the page. It's kind of really hard to go back through and copy what's on these pages. Let me just move this over real quick. Okay, so I'll come through here and I'll just grab all that data, right? And then I'll Command all, I'll copy it, I'll open ChatGPT, maybe. Oh, I won't let you watch on here, so I'll open it in here. Okay, so then I'll say, make a simple grocery list with these ingredients. And then I'll put all the ingredients in there. It might put too much information. We'll say list according to grocery store layout. I'll put both of these in the video description. Let's see what this comes up as. Okay. I think we can make this work. So then what I'll do from here is, this will give me an idea of what I would need. I can then go in and say, hey, make this meal plan, or make this grocery list for 6 days. Oops, definitely don't need the code here. Okay. It kind of went through and gave me a little bit more information, but you can see how simple that was. We made a meal plan and a grocery list, all within a few minutes. Granted, I kind of skimmed over the actual meal planning part of it. Let me know. I'll do another one of these videos that just focuses on that. If that's something you want to do, leave a comment for me saying, go in more depth on making meal plan, or meal plan, deeper on meal plan. I don't know. Leave something that remind me to do it. Okay, cool. So we've got simple grocery list for 6 days. We'll just snag this. What I'll do is you can come into here. Oh, it won't let me pull up the. We'll say we'll put it in a Google Doc for now. So then we have produce section, dairy section. Normally I put this in my notes section of my phone so then I can just take my phone with me